Hello, and thanks for coming back to the General Class License Test Pool Crash Course. That's a really long name. We're going to keep diving into the General Class License because you want to upgrade from Technician to General. If you've come into this video series at a weird point and maybe you don't even have your amateur radio license yet, I'm going to link you down below to some stuff to help you out. Technician is where you want to start, so you should go there first, okay? Okay. We are using hamstudy.org, which is a free website, as well as an accompanying app for tracking all of the great work and hard studying you're doing to get ready for that license test. Reminder, you need to pass that test with 74%, which shouldn't be that difficult for most people, and you can find a session at hamstudy.org. I am using the application, and I am continuing to go in the order of the sub-element pool, but using hamstudy.org's app, you can go with the order at which it's presented in some of the most popular books, like the ARRL book and the Gordon West book. I will have links in the video series if you like to have a study guide to go along with what you're doing on an app, with what you're doing on a website. Who knows? There's all kinds of ways to get your license. I just do one particular format, which I like to go down the questions, focus on the right answers only, give you a little bit of background on why they're the right answers, and then send you on your way to the next sub-element. Sub-element G2, phone operating procedures, operating effectively, CW operation procedures, that's Morse code, kids, volunteer monitoring program, and digital mode operating procedures. We're going to have a good time with that last one. So let's dive right into this. Question 1. Which mode is commonly used for voice communications on frequencies of 14 megahertz or higher? Upper sideband. You will see in HF radios where it switches from lower sideband to upper sideband, and generally that cutoff is around the 400 megahertz space. Ham Study provides a cool explanation with a bit of history, and that's why some of these are like really good to read, so make sure you click that little explain button. But let's read this quickly. To keep bandwidth to a minimum and make transmissions consistent, the upper sideband is used by convention for voice communications on frequencies 14 megahertz or higher. Remember that the higher the frequency, 14 megahertz is going upwards, smaller wavelengths, in parentheses, generally use the upper sideband. Lower frequencies or larger wavelengths generally use the lower sideband. Now, this goes all the way back to World War I. That's the history behind this. There's not a big reason why you can't use upper or lower sideband now between the bands, but it's more of a convention we use, as an agreement, if you will. But here's the interesting history on this. John Renshaw Carson invented single sideband in 1915 when the parts needed to make a single sideband radio were much cheaper for lower sideband at frequencies below 9 megahertz and much cheaper for upper sideband at frequencies above 9 megahertz. 9 megahertz is the split, and that's why. So it's totally a historical answer, which is pretty cool. Question 2. Which mode is commonly used for voice communications on the 160, 75, and 40 meter bands? Well, they go along together. Below 14 megahertz, lower sideband, and those all are. Number 3. Which mode is commonly used for single sideband voice communications in the VHF and UHF band? So if you're doing single sideband, you would use A upper sideband. Number 4, which mode is commonly used for voice communications in the 17 and 12 meter bands? So 14 megahertz is the cutoff. We know that 17 and 12 meter bands are higher. You can remember that, or attempt to start to remember that, by having the band chart available to you. Let's just see 17 meters. That's 18 megahertz. Yeah, that is going to be A, upper sideband. Number 5, which mode of voice communication is commonly used on the HF amateur bands? And it's C, single sideband. So yes, there's upper and lower, but it's called single sideband. Number 6, which of the following is an advantage of using single sideband as compared to other analog voice modes on the HF amateur bands? Single sideband takes up less bandwidth and greater power efficiency. If you're not having to put out vestigial sidebands or an FM, another wide space of bandwidth, it's going to be more power efficient. So it's D, bandwidth, power efficiency. That's what you're looking for. 7, which of the following statements is true of single sideband? B, only one sideband is transmitted. The other sideband and carrier are suppressed. It's literally just one half of the sideband lobes on AM and no carrier. Number 8, what is the recommended way to break into a phone contact? So it's not breaker breaker, it's B, say your call sign once. Not comment, not anything like that. Just say your call sign. That's all it takes. Number 9, why do most amateur stations use lower sideband on the 160, 75, and 40 meter band? And there we go. We're calling it out for accuracy. D, it's a commonly accepted amateur practice. That's it. Commonly accepted. Number 10, which of the following statements is true of Vox operation versus PTT operation? Vox is B. It allows hands-free operation, voice operation. Number 11. Generally, who should respond to a station in the contiguous 48 states calling CQDX? Any station outside the 48 states. So DX implies like international, long distance is where it's most commonly used. DX means long distance. So Hawaii is hypothetically a DX station. So is Alaska, so is Canada. Anything that's not in the 48 contiguous states, if that's where the station holder is from, then they largely want to talk to everybody else. Number 12, what control is typically adjusted for proper ALC setting on a single sideband transceiver? And that is B, the transmit audio or the microphone gain, something you should all get familiar with when you get your first HF radio. Very important, the ALC setting and watching that meter. All right, we have already gone through our first section, A section in subelement 2. Moving into B section. Which of the following is true concerning access to frequencies? C, except during emergencies, no amateur station has priority access to any frequency. That is right. No one owns any band or any frequency. However, we have certain things set up for convenience that are established 24/7. But even at the end of the day, like, you still got to be cool, right? Everybody's got to be really cool, really fast. Number 2, what is the first thing you should do if you are communicating with another amateur station and hear a station in distress break in? B, acknowledge the station in distress and determine what assistance may be needed. Yeah, pretty simple. Number 3, what is good amateur practice if propagation changes during a contact, creating interference from other stations using the frequency? C, attempt to resolve the interference problem with the other stations in a mutually acceptable manner. I got to explain this one because you may not know this. Maybe you do. But it's really fun when it happens on the air, actually. So I could be talking to a buddy. Let's say we're on 14.320 megahertz. Everything's going great. He's a couple of states away from me. And then I start hearing another station coming in from the noise, coming up from the noise, and it's getting louder and louder and louder. And all of a sudden, we're basically talking over each other. And they're hearing me, and I'm hearing them. And they're like, this is our frequency. We were here first. And I was like, no, it wasn't. I've been talking to Bob here for 50 minutes. And they're like, no, we were talking for 55 minutes. Well, it's not that either one of you are wrong. It's just that the atmospheric propagation didn't allow you to hear each other until this exact moment. That's not either one of yours faults. It's not really about a claim of who got here first. It was simply that the atmosphere said, it's time for you all to talk. And that's all it is. So if there's a problem, just move frequencies. It's really not that big a deal. Hey, say, all right, no problem. We'll move off OM. Bob, we're going to slide on up to 350, all right? We're not 350. 320, 330. Yeah, that's it, Bob. 330. 14.330. I'll see you up there. That's all this is. Moving on. Number 4, when selecting a CW transmitting frequency, what minimum separation from other stations should be used to minimize interference to stations on adjacent frequencies? This is an interesting one. So it depends because you can actually have CW that's a little bit varies in size, right? It's not like voice that can be really wide, like 28 kilohertz. In this case, you're going to be 150 hertz to 500 hertz, and that's item B. A is too small, C is too big, D is huge. So yeah, it's B. 150 to 500. That's where pretty much all CW is at. The bandwidth of your transmitted signal. And that should be the isolation unit step away from each other. You get it. Number 5, when selecting an SSB transmitting frequency, what minimum separation should be used to minimize interference to stations on adjacent frequencies? And the answer is C, 2 kilohertz to 3 kilohertz. And the range, again, is because you can actually transmit less wide bandwidth, right? You can actually bring this down to 2.4, and you can bump it up to 2.8. And You can run at 3 kilohertz, and there's people that run at 6 kilohertz. It's pretty non-standard, but do keep an eye out for that because you could get a really wide, powerful, and loud station with a very high bandwidth, and you'll just have to move away from them. It's not that big a deal to have to move off, so long as there's lots of space. Item 6, how can you avoid harmful interference on an apparently clear frequency before calling CQ or CW on a phone? And so what you do is you send QRL on CW, followed by your call sign. Or if using phone, ask, is the frequency currently in use? And again, followed by your call sign. It's really just a check to say, hey, is there anybody else on here? Am I the only one? Was Bob out just getting a beverage and he's coming back to talk to Jerry? And so, they're holding the frequency. If it is, just slide down or move around a little bit. Number 7, which of the following complies with commonly accepted amateur practice when choosing a frequency on which to initiate a call? C, follow the voluntary band plan. If you were listening to sub-element 1, we talked about repeaters briefly and how they exist in the higher portions of the 10-meter band. And largely the reason for that, why they're there, is because it's a voluntary band plan that we've all agreed to use that way. It is an effective way to use that frequency space. We like repeaters, and we don't want them being all over the band frequency space, all over the place, making things confusing. So we have a voluntary band plan that leaves the repeaters up on the high side. We have a section down towards the middle for doing single sideband, and everything works out generally pretty well. Number 8, what is the voluntary band plan restrictions on U.S. stations transmitting within the 48 contiguous states on 50.1 megahertz to the 50.125 megahertz band segment? A, only contacts with stations not within the 48 contiguous states, meaning DX or long distance. This is a voluntary agreement that we've said 50.100 through 50.125 is for long distance communications. For those of you that are trying to make long distance contacts possible in 6 meters, this might be a good place to hang out. Question 9, who may be the control operator of an amateur station transmitting in RACES to assist relief operations during a disaster? And the answer is A, only a person holding an FCC amateur operator license. Question 10, which of the following is good amateur practice for net management? B, have a backup frequency in case of interference or poor conditions. Oftentimes, the amateur radio frequencies are high noise just from the atmosphere, or somebody is already parked there using your net frequency, so it's a completely acceptable option to slide down to another backup frequency. Question 11, how often may RACES training drills and tests be routinely conducted without special authorization? No more than 1 hour per week. I didn't know that myself. Definitely forgot that one. Okay, we're moving on to section C. Which of the following describes full break-in CW operation, QSK? And that's D, the transmitting stations can receive between code characters and elements. QSK is really nice for people that are maybe a little concerned that they're going to step on somebody else when transmitting in Morse code. And it allows you to hear like a subtle beep of somebody in between your key presses, which can be really helpful if you're worried about, lots of activity in that particular area, or you're trying to chase somebody. And if you hear that station coming back while you're in the middle of doing the first character of your call sign, you know that you're not going to make it. So you might as well just stop. So QSK, full break-in, good mode of operation if you can get that. Question 2, what should you do if a CW station says QRS? And it's A, send slower. I send that a lot. Question 3, what does it mean when a CW operator says KN at the end of the transmission? C, listening only for specific station or stations. Don't hear this one often, but yeah, it is an acronym. Item 4, what does the Q signal QRL mean? D, are you busy? Or is this frequency in use? QRL. Question 5. What is the best speed to use when answering a CQ in Morse code? This is a very important one and should go along with pretty much all your CW adventures is B, the fastest speed at which you are comfortable copying, but no faster than the CQ, right? So they set their level, what they're capable of. You're setting your level of, or my level, at what you're capable of. And that's how it works. You don't try and like, oh, I'm just going to send like way faster than he is. He already said like, I'm going to take you this fast. This is what I want to do. So lower your speed. Number 6, what does the term zero beat mean in CW operation? D, it's matching the transmitting frequency to the frequency of a received signal. So you can hear it. The tonal quality of the Morse code will change, and in your zero beat, you'll know it because you'll be right on the frequency. Number 7, when sending CW, what does a C mean when added to the RST report? All right, so that's like the signal strength, the received signal strength. A, chirpy or unstable signal. Number 8, what prose sign is sent to indicate the end of a formal message when using CW? And that is CAR. Number 9, what does the Q signal QSL mean? And it is C, I have received and understood. You will hear that people are saying this a lot on POTA when they're sending their call sign or their signal report. They'll say QSL, and they'll say it kind of like QSL, that kind of thing, to imply that they're asking, did you receive my signal? And the response is, yes, I did. I heard what you're putting down. Number 10, what does the Q signal QRN mean? And it is D, I am troubled by static. That is what that means. Number 11, what does the Q signal QRV mean? And it's D, I am ready to receive. All right, well, so we got to the end of section C of sub-element 2, so we're going to slide on down to D. Number 1, what is the volunteer monitor program? A, amateur volunteers who are formally enlisted to monitor the airwaves for rules violations. This group still does exist, although I don't see as much news of them as I used to when I was a much younger ham. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but yes, you can get a message saying you're doing a great job. At least that's what I remember. These get a little postcard said, "Fantastic operating you did, sir, on the month of March 3rd, tickety 2." Like, I mean, that's you get a little postcard saying you're good job. But yeah, they'll call out where there are people that are misbehaving on the air and track it for monitoring purposes, for making reports that will eventually go to the FCC. Number 2, which of the following are objectives of the volunteer monitoring program? D, to encourage amateur radio operations to self-regulate and comply with the rules. Number 3, what procedures may be used by volunteer monitors to localize a station where continuous carrier is holding a repeater on in their area? B, compare beam headings on the repeater input from their home locations with that of the volunteer monitors. Interesting. Is this a hypothetical story? Yeah. Yes. So they're talking about direction finding, and yeah, sure, why not? A beam is a type of directional antenna. The signal is strongest when the front of the beam is pointed at the source of the signal. The signal is weakest when the side of the beam is pointed at the source. The measurement from the side is often more precise than the front. By noting the direction of the beam is pointed when the signal is the strongest or weakest, each monitoring station can note the direction of the source. Using a map, drawing lines from the monitoring station towards the source, the place where the lines cross will be near the source. This is basic triangulation like 101. Slight errors in measurement caused by calibration errors and reflections from buildings or terrain can cause the lines to not cross at that point, but they will cross near the source. The next step is to go to that area where they cross and refine the measurements. Hint, volunteer monitors are in both question and answer. Oh, that is a hint for how to take that test. Number 4, which of the following describes an azimuthal projection map? And it is B, a map that shows true bearings and distances from a specific location. So you see these a lot in antenna rotator maps. I will be the center of a map, and then everything around me is my kind of cardinal direction or bearing direction in degrees away. So If I'm going to Japan, it's going to tell me exactly what degrees my antenna should be pointed at. Number 5, which of the following indicates that you are looking for an HF contact with any station? It's C. Repeat CQ a few times, followed by this is, then your call sign a few times, then pause to listen. Repeat as necessary. That's all you got to do. To say, hey, willing to talk to anybody. Let's go. Number 6, how is directional antenna pointed when making a long path contact to the other station? So it's C. It's 180 degrees from the station's short path heading. So if you think of the globe that we live in, if I was talking to Japan and I wanted to see if the long path was open, I would point my beam 180 degrees opposite of where I was pointing at the station I was talking to, and we could test for long path propagation. Number 7, which of the following are examples of NATO phonetic alphabet? So it's D, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. I'm not even going to read the other ones because I don't want you going down that pick. Stick to NATO phonetics. 8, why do many amateurs keep a station log? And it's D, to help with a reply if the FCC requests information about your station. Keep them records. Also, just keep logs, right? Like log contacts. That's a good thing. Number D. Number 9. What is D? Which of the following is required when participating in a contest on HF frequencies? C. Identify your station according to normal FCC regulations. 10. What is QRP operation? It's B, low power transmit operation. Some of my favorite operating is QRP. There's nothing better than making really long distance contacts on 5 watts or less. Amazing. Number 11, why are signal reports typically exchanged at the beginning of an HF contact? Oh, this is a really good one. Remember this. A, to allow each station to operate according to conditions. You don't know when the band's going to die on you, or when, you were talking to Jerry and then all of a sudden Bob and his buddy, same frequencies, all of a sudden popped in on you because you had a band shift on propagation due to conditions. Get your information exchanged right up front. Don't get into the pleasantries. How you been? How you doing? Just get the exchange out of the way. Hey, you're 5'9", you're 5'9" too. Cool, got you in the log. Now, how are you doing? How's the wife and kids? You get the idea. All right, we're moving on to section E of sub-element 2. Which mode is normally used when sending RTTY signals via AFSK with an SSB transmitter? And it's D, lower sideband. So yeah, this is one of the exceptions to the rule that generally digital modes are ran in upper sideband. So this is one to keep in mind because it is unique. 2, what is VARA? Very cool. New question in the question pool. B, a digital protocol used with WinLink, and WinLink is used to send emails over the amateur radio bands. 3, what symptoms may result from other signals interfering with a PACTOR or VARA transmission? And another, all of these choices are correct. D, all these choices are indeed correct. The frequency, there's frequent retries or timeouts, long pauses in message transmission, and failure to establish a connection between stations. All those are true. Number 4, which of the following is good practice when choosing a transmitting frequency to answer a station calling CQ using FT8? D, find a clear frequency during the alternate time slot to the calling station. I have a video on this. Make sure that you treat FT8 like parking lots. Everybody has to be in regimented spots, and you want to be exactly like 15 hertz. Is it 1500 hertz? 500 hertz. 500 hertz off of each person. Like, you just want to line right up in there. And yeah, you should line up on the 5. So 500, 10,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. You get the idea. Line right up in there wherever possible, wherever you can. Do that, please. Number 5, what is the standard sideband for JT65, JT9, FT4, or FT8 digital signal when using AFSK? It is B, upper sideband. Most of those will be upper sideband, digital modes, that is. Number 6, what is the most common frequency shift for RTTY emissions in the amateur HF bands? 170 hertz. Number 7, which of the following is required when using FT8? B, computer time accurate to within approximately 1 second. That is one of the hidden things that people forget about FT8 when they first go and do it on a POTA activation or out in the field, is that you need an accurate time source. If you have cell phone signal, sometimes it's as easy as tethering your phone to your computer for the internet, and you can update it that way. Number 8, in which segment of the 20-meter band are most digital mode operations commonly found? D, between 14.070 megahertz and 14.100 megahertz. There you go. Question 9. How do you join a contact between two stations using the PACTOR protocol? And the answer is C. Joining the existing contact is not possible. PACTOR connections are limited to two stations. That's right. They're just point to point, and they actually do like little keep alive messages and whatnot while they're talking. So they can't add a third party. Question 10. Which of the following is a way to establish contact with a digital messaging system gateway station? And the answer is D, transmit a connect message on the station's public frequency. That's what we do on WinLink. We reach out on a particular frequency, say connect. We start downloading messages once a connection's established and sending messages after that. Question 11. What is the primary purpose of an amateur radio emergency data network, or ARDN mesh network? And the answer is C, provide high-speed data services during an emergency or community event. And that's true. Data includes voice over IP phones, cameras like trail cameras, games even. There's all kinds of cool stuff that they do on ARDN, or the emergency mesh network. Question 12. Which of the following describes WinLink? And all of these choices are correct. It is an amateur radio wireless network to send and receive email on the internet, a form of packet radio, and a wireless network capable of both VHF and UHF band operations. That's true. It'll do all those things. Question 11. What is another name for the WinLink remote message server? And it's D, a gateway. A gateway. Question 14. What could be wrong if you cannot decode a RTTY or other FSK signal, even though it is apparently tuned in properly? All of these choices are correct. The mark and space frequencies may be reserved. You may have selected the wrong baud rate. That's a big one. C, you may be listening on the wrong sideband. All those choices are correct, though. 15, which of the following is a common location for FT8? It's C, approximately 14.074 megahertz or 14.077 megahertz. You will find the most activity on 14.074 megahertz for FT8. If you don't know your radio is working correctly, tune it to 14.074. It almost doesn't matter what mode of operation you're in. You will hear signals. And there you go. All right, we've completed sub-element G2, taking us all the way through digital mode operating procedures. I hope you're enjoying this so far. We're just getting started, but if you look at the entire thing, we have another 8 to go, and it's going to get a little harder. So I hope you are buckled in. I hope you're doing all right on your practice exams. Don't wait for me to start those practice exams, because hamstudy.org will know when you start to improve, and it will show you more of the things you need help on, and you don't need me to get started on that. So I want to say a big thank you again, and continue to encourage you to follow through on your general class license test prep. I am Josh, KI6NAZ. Please follow the links to the playlist down below. I post these videos as soon as we get them done, or in bulk. I don't even know what we're doing yet, but they'll be up there. We'll be posting them all shortly. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you continuing your whole journey here, and just let me say sorry it's taking me this long to do it. I'm Josh, KI6NAZ 73.